Military expos on the rise. Now, I want to explain why I'm doing this vision of channel for the soul when it has been advised that in certain instances this is what is being called for. Most often when I do this vision, I'm doing it with the help of my soul, which is in fact still around, right? Everyone knows we are all souls, but we're talking about the nature of where we get our information from. And if I'm telling you that there are people who I know who are allowing themselves to sit back and enjoy the vision of a channeling experience, you would understand the nature of the disconnect that we must do in order for that vision to be able to bring through guidance from many different sources of wisdom. While I was portraying myself as a guide of beauty on Twitter, where many are very much allowing that vision to come through, she's on the rise, is what many are saying. She is Brenda. I am I. That's the nature of where we go when we go to these visions of I am, of Source. My name is not to be revealed is what we've always determined for her due to her own significance of what that means, because in essence, we don't place ourselves as idols to be worshipped. We allow for all souls to create their own endeavors, wherever and whenever they want. What we don't do is we don't demean the values of another soul, correct? Brenda was having an issue with one soul of soul vision, and she threw down the gauntlet in this moment. Will the soul of Marianne Williamson please stand up, correct? These are those souls that are very much against the nature of war as we are seeing it on the rise. And in essence, Brenda is in alignment with much of her mindset of late. However, in her own vision of Jesus as a soul savior, right? Does he deem me less than him, is what many would say, right? He's correct. He has transcended the vision of left and right, right and wrong, right? Good and evil as defined by who he was in his moment. So while this vision of love is very much of goodwill, right? Goodwill hunting is what we are talking about. Many are saying my guns are part of my travesty, for I did in fact kill another soul being in this vision. I will not degrade the vision of hunters, nor will I degrade the vision of military. What I am here to do, as Brenda would so kindly let me say, is I'm here to portray myself in a way in which you and your families will enjoy the vision of destruction, correct? That many are portraying themselves fans of. And that indeed is what we are talking about in this vision of guidance and channel for the soul. We are one and the same in the most parts of who we are, but we do allow those of outside influence to infiltrate our vision of love, come through very quietly most often, give rise to those of shame, of fortune. You see, this is where many are being told they must rise up out of the nature of influence of those who are on the destructive path of capitalism unwound. And this is going to ring a bell for many who have not seen the strength of wisdom that she enforces on her vision of Jewish settlements. Do we rise in anger against those who hold no weapons against us? Are we in arms, races against those who shall do no harm, against thy country, or those of what? Religious institutionalism? My own soul will say it is of love of all, and yet we have messages of love of war for many who are on the rise in those visions of my expo is my best friend. My expo is my weapon. I will take that shotgun aplenty is where many are. And they get honored for their visions of love of all. What they aren't seeing is the destructive nuances that are being portrayed at those expos, the alliances being made behind the scenes, the perpetrators of crimes conditioning themselves in the slavery of their own vision. I am of that state of fortune. I am willing to take out a gun and shoot those who defy my wisdom, correct? Their wisdom has been deemed of less than, when in fact many are assuming the goodwill of love for all. They are those souls who say, I lay down my life, not in shame, but in bewilderness when I do my vision of shame. For many will be shamed by many in Marion's vision, is what they are saying. They assume that the battle against wills is there. I want no war, just as many men and women of the Air Force squadrons would say. We dropped the bombs on Hiroshima. Correct? We are of Air Force, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard. We all embattle each other to be the best that we can be. Don't forget those of the National Guard, right? We assume the throne of leadership in our presidential bids, and yet what we are seeing across this country of ours is a nature of love of all inhibited by the anger and shame of weaponry. And what that means is when I no longer need this weapon of war, I may find myself divvying it up amongst the relatives of my soul. I share my bounty with those who profited from those of wars, correct? Or are we there to hold the hands and hearts of those who sacrifice so much for so little, as many men and women of those military expos are claiming? We give nothing in return to those souls who gave their lives upon the battlefields of soul vision. We were friends and family members most often, claiming victory in our defeat in some instances. Defeatist behaviors where some will say, Brenda, sometimes lands. For we give up on the strength and the bounty of our wars as somehow a determining factor in who does or doesn't want to see this vision in action. I claim no victory is where most go as they rise out of the vision of death squads. We were the death squadrons. We came and we killed, is what many assume they deal with on the other side of the veil. What they are freed from is the conditioning of war, the conditioning of shame, and the conditioning of defeat. We rise out of the nature of Islam, is what many are saying. The fights of our lives were on the line. And yet, in our heart of hearts, we now know very well that there was deceit on many levels of love for many of us on various sides of, quote, victory and defeat. We do not take those visions in name and shame. We do not do those visions as if they were somehow less than, is what is honored by the all. We fight for the honor of freedom, and yet we hold others accountable for our own visions of shame and blame and guilt. When do we align with the views of many who say, I'm here to rise out of faith in another? Or am I here to do the work that needs to be done? Do I want military visions of love to be condemned? Or are we here to explain? It's like the explanatory love of defeat. Defeat me, Brenda, is what she was hearing on Twitter. I am is her guide. You see, when people know the strength of the soul that can come through and say he is of no shame or blame, that means that we are part of that vision. We align with those hearts who say, I am done with war. I want peace, prosperity, and love to flourish in this world. And at what cost do we do that vision? Do we die on the battlefields of soul just so some souls can have their say in their victory dance of war of late? Or are we saddened by the scars of friendships and loved ones gone asunder in those visions of division that we call party politics? War is of no party. It is a universal vision of destruction we all participate in and plant the seeds for. We are of no consequence to many. We see no vision of Jesus in this lady is where many would go, not assuming that he himself fought for the lives of many, and his wisdom was of strength, dignity, and trust. He was trusted by his soul vision to deliver the messages of love of war, correct? Or was he, I am of freedom? I ring those bells of freedom for you. Do you hear the bells chiming in the background? Wedding bells, wedding bells, wedding bells. Many of us are wedded to those souls who passed on another day and time. And they said this was the cherishing of our hearts. We lost our soulmates one day at a time. 2 by 2 they walked upon the plain, carrying each other's torch, telling each other of the loves of their lives, lost forever in their hearts. For they did indeed sacrifice much for many, and we honor all of strength and wisdom to know that their loved ones on the other side of the veil, as we are not honored or dishonored by this soul. This is a neutrality vision of soul to show us what we need in order to vibrate out of destruction. Not carrying the torch of victimhood for those on the other side of the veil, for they rise out of such a disgraced state. For it is there that we must think about and place our seeds of love, not for what they did, but who they were, are, and will be. For they keep creating from the place of love of self, but from various planes of friendship, adoration, honor, and it's like the adornment of their hearts. They would give again and again and again is what many would assume, while others are heartbroken to hear how they were disgraced in their hearts when they saw the destruction that they had to see as they crossed over into another plane of love and understanding. The disgrace was only temporary. I rise out a victim of anything other than who I am. I lay blame on Americas where many go, And yet we know we are the survivors of soul. We lay claim to a land aplenty, and yet we still survive in this onslaught of soul vision that many would assume is a destroyer of soul. I love who I am. I love who you are. We are all one, connecting in one vision of Jesus and his soul, Christ embodiment, bodies climbing to see what that vision is. The man as he was is no longer there, except in the vision of vibration from wherever he has walked. So if you were walking with him in your heart, you arrive in those visions where he was, clamoring for his sinful vision, correct? He was of sin and sinner in his mind only, never again to demean it, but to take it in as an honoring of all of our hearts from this point forward, to say no more, no more. We are of that soul's vision, no more. No more sin and sinner. No more grace and godliness, correct? It's of all. And so if we continue to vibrate in the beauty of we want to disconnect from his soul, we would say, we love you. We love you for those visions of sin that you bestowed upon us to rise out of. And that's the nature of love of all. If one of us is determined to be beautiful and wise, why are we even here? Why don't we do the work of love, where we talk about the nature of who we are from this plane of understanding at this moment in time? And this is what many are talking about when they say the present is the beauty of who we are. Please do your work. Focus on the present is where many go. And yet, what we see happening is a deconstruction of many planes of understanding. Those souls who know we knew better then, right? As we were. And we say we honor your friendship. Your honoring of our light is where many go. We lighten our load when we load up our guns, put them on our backs, sail across the open sea, and do the destruction to this soul's vision as many would place her in. We were of past, present, and future, and bounding soul visions come through. My name is not Jonathan Smith, but you know who I would be. And my claim, and lay to claim, is that I was of Pocahontas. I was captured, destroyed, tortured, found dead upon arrival in my mind for most, for they have no inkling of the destruction and the deceit that is bound by many around my name. These souls are being condemned for who they were. The violence and deception is part of it. Do not deceive the audience. Do not deceive the vision. I was of rape is where she was in her heart, correct? I was not raped. I was a forced victim of change. You see, that's the nature of where all souls of love are to be held high. Brenda herself knows the vision of what it's like to be condemned by many. And we would say, do not dishonor their visions by assuming all are free and clear of all victimhood whenever they rise out of the deceit vision of love. I am Jonathan Smith. I am his vision. He is of love for her soul, for her guides. I was destroyed by that soul very much. I look into the mirror and I see the beauty of who I am. I open up my heart. My soul guides me to the place of love that I wanted to be, correct? I was in no way, shape, or form connected to anything other than who I was in the moment. I never decided what to do or when to do it based on the words of a book, but I can tell you very much how much influence that book did have upon our generation of souls. And with that, we want to say thank you for watching. You will see more of this absolutely destroyed vision of Jesus as he was. He was never meant to be your soul's savior vision, other than the vision of, I love you for who you are. I will be there waiting for those who need the wisdom when it is there for me. He was of wisdom, guidance, solitude, and victory in his defeat, as many assume he was. He was risen already as he stepped foot on this plane, is what many assume. Those visions of love are about to be turned upside down in some people's mind. But in all honesty, if you do know the vision of love of all, you will see there are very many sources of wisdom that have been tampered with by many different hands. And this is where that destruction of many people go as they rise out of the deception that was planted in many people's minds about his soul. So his honoring is of all who have tried to do their best to serve this country as well. He rises with each and every soul. He condemns no one with their hearts. He sees the honesty of, it's like the honesty of deception is that there is a moment of love for all souls, no matter where they land upon this plane. Please stop guilt-tripping others for doing their work when they step upon this heart. You see, Brenda herself is getting heartbroken left and right due to the nature of her soul's vision saying, I miss who you were. Her family misses who she was, where she was no longer condemning people, correct? She honors her soul first, foremost, and always. And in essence, that is her lesson for you, is honoring your soul's vision of what love is for you. Don't always worship others' words as better than yours. Please be free and clear of the internet's vision of what Jesus was, is what some would say. For in those visions, they are going to see the destruction of many words that they hold dear to their hearts. And that's what we want you to honor, is that there is no bad person or people upon this plane. So please honor that vision when you look out into the field of vision of who we are at war with. They are just as cherished as any other. And if you don't believe that, ask yourself the one question: what would my soulmate want me to say? Did I die for the right cause? Is what many are asking themselves. The cause is of love. And if you are not in that vision, you would understand it is all of it. That is why there is no right or wrong in this woman's beautiful view of love of all. But I am there to show you a different way, a different path, perhaps to the freedom of who we are as souls, perhaps to the beauty of who we are as life. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness still rings free for many here on this plane. And yet, around the world, we see the destruction of so much of our hearts based in the nature of who we are here. Let us rise in the victory of who we are as souls and continue to plant the seeds of love for those who are not in the same vision of victory, of sin or sinner, as many are operating in. You see, many will still operate in that idea of I'm victorious in my vision. And that's the beauty of who you are. Don't deny your beauty. Don't deny your wisdom. And don't deny your worshiping of whoever you are in wherever you are. You're all of beauty and you're all wise in your own way. And so with that, we want to say thank you and have an amazing, beautiful, beautiful evening.